Delivering basic governance right now looks like a luxury in India. In this context, I look at something very basic this time, and that is right to life. Every citizen of India is guaranteed the right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Now, why is this a big deal in the middle of a pandemic? The reason is each of us are trying to scramble for oxygen cylinders, oxygen concentrators, ventilators, beds, and everything else as a result of inefficiency and poor planning, which is actually claiming lives at every corner of the country. From Delhi to Kerala to Kanyakumari, it is the same situation everywhere. In some places and states, it is even worse. We are now seeing bodies being dumped into rivers in North India due to high cremation charges at local crematoriums and also due to lack of space at graveyards. We are also witnessing how oxygen supply shortage in hospitals across the country is claiming lives at one go. To top it off, vaccine shortage is still a huge issue across India, and this has been there since the center started its Tika Utsav campaign across the country. Not just this, even the COVID application breakdown soon after the center announced that vaccines will be open for those above 18, we could see a massive problem across the country in registrations. Now, why are we so restless and helpless in this situation? The lack of planning and complete inefficiency of the government that is actually hitting every citizen of this country. And yet, we are seeing that the new parliament called the Central Vista is being constructed at breakneck speed. Interestingly, the government also listed it as an essential services under construction. Coming back to the whole pandemic, when the government saw a year of pandemic and has been warned clearly about a second wave, there are many questions that come up at this juncture. One, why weren't the vaccine doses planned for a population of over 1 billion? Second, why was there such a hurry to do a PR campaign on publicizing and distributing vaccines to other countries when we ourselves did not have enough vaccines for our own population? Third, what was the need for us to go through that publicity when we actually needed planning to be ready for the second wave? It is appalling to see our government, even now, not accepting responsibility or taking accountability for its actions and still being busy with image management. Here are a few questions that one cannot stop when looking at the current crisis. Why was there a delay by the center in releasing funds for vaccine production despite knowing about the massive rollout plan and an impending threat of the second wave of infections? If not for vaccinating the whole population at once, why couldn't the rollout have been in a phased manner? Where have all the government health or insurance schemes gone? Now that brings us to understand what are these schemes rolled out by government of India and why they are not coming to people's rescue at such a crucial time. So now let's try to look at what are these insurance schemes that are actually targeted at the poor. Ayushman Bharat or Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is a health insurance scheme for the poor. Then there is another called PM Suraksha Bima Yojana, and we have Aam Aadmi Bima Yojana for fishing, handloom, weavers, and such communities. Then there is Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana for the unorganized sector. And among states, we have something like Chief Minister's comprehensive insurance scheme, like in Tamil Nadu, then Karunya Health Scheme in Kerala, and Arogyasri in Andhra Pradesh. But most of these government schemes do not include COVID 19 as part of the diseases. Additionally, even insurance companies are today struggling to understand or design insurance covers which includes diseases like COVID-19, which is pretty much a new virus. Even insurance companies are now collecting high premiums. Now, going by the sheer numbers, it is evident that the purchase of life and health insurance covers in the last 1 year has gone up in the midst of this global pandemic. But are these really helping the poor? The answer is no. Nowhere in the process are the poor benefiting from these insurance covers because one, they do not understand the claims process, and two, they do not demand for protection even in the government health insurance schemes that they have purchased for the sheer lack of knowledge. While this remains a cause of concern, here's a clear example of how the Modi government is taking decisions in the midst of a raging pandemic. Last year, the Modi government actually brought out a scheme for healthcare workers who die while fighting the pandemic and ensured that their family receives a sum of 50 lakh. But what happened around April 2021, late April 2021, is the government of India withdrew the scheme saying this no more is applicable for frontline healthcare workers who die fighting the pandemic. Now, 10 days later, exactly, the government immediately comes up with a decision and says, we are extending this for another 6 months. Now, let's try to look at how the decision making is so skewed and so unplanned and inefficient that in the middle of a pandemic, a government is actually taking out a very beneficial scheme for frontline healthcare workers and putting them in further jeopardy. Unfortunately, this is the kind of decision making that is happening in the country at a time when there is a COVID emergency and a healthcare crisis across the country. Why would a government be so insensitive to withdraw and then extend when a raging pandemic in the country is directly claiming lives of frontline healthcare workers? Why would you go back and forth on a decision at such a crucial time and confuse the entire country? Why cannot such basic things, which include common sense, be handled in a better way by the government? Why isn't the central government actually pushing insurance companies and states to include COVID 19 as part of the diseases list in their health insurance policies? Can't the government really take accountability and push states to do that when it is actually left states high and dry to procure vaccines by themselves? Now, if the center pushes states to actually include COVID 19 as part of their state health insurance covers, it will not only benefit the poor and those looking for financial help, but it will also decrease the burden on these families, which could also save their mental health. At this juncture, I would like to come back to something we discussed in the beginning, and that is right to life. Now, the state high courts also pointed out to centers' lackadaisical attitude and lack of accountability in dealing with the COVID emergency that India is facing today, especially in the second wave. Now, if one takes that into account, isn't the center responsible for violating Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which guarantees the right to life to every citizen of this country? Isn't the center responsible for violating this basic fundamental right that we have? What Article 21 of the Indian Constitution states is no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to a procedure established by law. Now, the word life in Article 21 of the Indian Constitution does not just mean the physical act of breathing. What it connotes is anything more than just existence or continued drudgery through life. What it means is that right to life with dignity, right to health, right to livelihood, right to free air, etc. One court judgment, what it says about right to life is this: deprive a person from his right to livelihood, and you shall be depriving him of his life. Another judgment again says this: socio-economic rights are basic aspirations for meaning that right to life and right to social security and protection of family are an integral part of right to life. So, what this says is directly, social and economic security are also part of the right to life. Now, here's what I want you to really think about. Given that the right to life and to die with dignity, the right to health, and the right to livelihoods, all of these rights are being violated by the central government, which is the government of India itself, can we, the citizens of this country, penalize or hold the central government responsible for breaching and violating the basic human rights that every citizen of this country deserves? Even at such a crucial time, the ministers of the central cabinet are running to save the prime minister's image rather than trying to handle this crisis or prepare a kind of emergency response to save lives. So, the next time you vote in the election, please remember this crisis of 2020 and 2021, where the government exposed itself and its inefficiency was clearly seen. Do we really need such governments which do not care for the lives of its citizens? Are votes the only answer to everything that we do? Aren't we also people who deserve the basic right to life? Thank you for watching this analysis. Please stay home and stay safe. If you're venturing out, please wear a mask. Take care of yourselves.